welcome to the 50th anniversary of the Black Panther Party celebration. And it is a celebration. 50 years, you know it's a celebration. All right. My name is Gail Dixon, M. Gail Asali Dixon. And my name was Asali at the time when I was in the party. And I drew for the back pages from 72 to 74. And I also worked at the Oakland Community School and till 76. Right now we have 3 dynamic, powerful ladies. We have one, Charlotte O'Neill, also known as Mama C. We have one, Barbara Easley Cox. All right. We have one, Kathleen Cleaver. Y'all act like you don't know her. So at any rate, I am happy that all of you are here. I want to say welcome, 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 and I think you're in for a treat as they talk about their time in exile and being Black Panther women over on the international level, because it's more than just Algiers from what I was just listening. So on an international level, we have these 3 women that are coming to you this morning. So let's give another hand of welcome and a thank you.
What? I was waiting. Glad y'all are here. And I want to just say one little thing, an excerpt from one of my poems. I'm a wild woman. I am a Panther woman, a warrior woman, wild for peace. And I will take you by the collar and come up close to you and get all up in your face and make you drool and get wet round the edges for the taste of it. I'm talking about peace. For the sweet of it, peace. For the addictionness of it, peace. And I am a wild woman. I am a Panther woman, a warrior woman, wild for peace, y'all.
Okay.
Well, we're just introducing ourselves?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to take it and go with it. Okay, my name is Barbara Easley Cox. I want to put that out there. I'm from Philadelphia, and I was married to Field Marshal Don Cox. And because of him, his reputation, his name, his attitude towards people, I get a lot of what I call undeserved praise and salutations, okay? You DC's wife? Wow, okay, yeah. But it's one thing that I don't back away from, and I don't back away from who I am, okay? I'm a rank and file Panther. And thanks to Kathleen, DC, Elridge, and a few other Panthers, I had great adventures. And I talk about it in this book. And the girl will be here. Susanna, are you here? Not. She's all right, long as she's coming. But the bottom line for me is I will always be a Black Panther for self-defense. I always believed in Kwame Nkrumah's statement in his little black book, and he said, the maturity and the state of a nation is judged by its women. All right, so as a Black woman, I'm very proud. I also realize that at any time, somebody's going to look at me or judge me, okay? And I wear different masks. I am definitely a mask wearer. You know, when I have to go downtown and beg white people for money, I put on my white girl pearls, my blouse. I don't mind begging if it's to help the people. Anything. Somebody asked me once, how would you sell your soul? I said, free all political prisoners and I'll go to hell and fight. Fight. So I'm going to let Kat take it from here.
I think what we're doing is introducing ourselves to you, and then we can go back and start and the same way, and then we can do a Q&A. I think we have 2 hours. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So how much time we're going to leave for questions, people?
What are we doing?
For
How much
Q&A,
time for Q&A?
15 minutes.
What?
You don't answer now?
After we talk, then they have to get, all these people, we
Half
gotta have more
hour.
than 15.
How much time do you all want for questions?
hour.
Half hour?
At least,
Okay, cool.
okay.
We'll see.
All
We'll
right.
see how it rolls.
All right, now we got that problem solved. It is amazing and extraordinary for me to be here in the Oakland Museum at the 50th anniversary of the Black Panther Party. I was pretty sure
Yeah,
when I
never
came
thought.
in 1967 and Eldridge and I got engaged, and I went back to South and came back again after Huey got shot. He said, you got to come out here and help us. So from the time I could get plane fare from Atlanta to come to Oakland, and that year, I think it was early, when did he get shot?
What's it?
67 in October?
It's,
I think so. I was in the Black Panther Party. I didn't even have time to join. I didn't even figure anything out. My name was Kathleen Neal Snick, but I'm a Panther. We didn't have any procedures. We had emergencies that we had to deal with. And so I helped because I had been in a civil rights organization and I had a sense of order and system. I didn't know I did then, but I know now. I helped pull things together and do things and keep notes and be on the phone and write memos, etc. Alex Hoffman was one of our attorneys, and he said, Kathleen, you're the only one we can reach on the phone. But then you don't know where anybody is. It was amazing, probably scary, but I never got scared. It was so intense. It was so wonderful. It was an amazing time. And I could come from SNCC, where I was in the Black Power crew, the people who came into SNCC with Black Power in 1966, and come to California. I think I was the first SNCC person out here with the Panther, came involved. Well, I was in love with Eldridge, so. And he was involved with the Panthers. But it was life-changing. It was country-changing. It was amazing. And look at all of you. You weren't even born, half of you. Two-thirds of you weren't even born when all that happened. And you're here listening in the Oakland Museum to a program, and I can't even believe it.
okay.
The 50th anniversary of the Black Panther Party. So welcome. I think we ought to do like 15 minutes presentation each, and then do the Q&A, unless you object. Okay. Okay, Charlotte.
Okay, it's about 15 minutes?
Yes.
So somebody has to keep me on point because I have so much to say. And usually it just spills over and I don't want to hog the mic from my sisters. So somebody let me know when my 15 minutes is not.
Raise hand. There's somebody in the front row. You, right there. Will you do it?
Okay, cool. So it's funny that I was always the youngest one in the international section. And now in Tanzania, East Africa, I'm always the oldest one. Besides Brother Pete O'Neill, who is my husband of 47 years, who is now 76. I can't believe that. We've been together since I was 18. He too, as many of our Panther leaders and rank and file, was impacted by COINTELPRO. He was a victim of COINTELPRO, and we left the country after he had been convicted of carrying a gun across state lines, of all things, a newly enacted law because he had gone to the Senate in Washington, D.C. and presented some evidence that the then chief of police was suspected of gun running. So we left underground, and in this book, my sister Barbara is talking about, I think it's this one, I talk about the Underground Railroad that assisted many of our comrades to go to Algeria and other points of refuge and safety around the world. We ended up in Algeria, and I remember that day so well because I was newly pregnant, 19 years old, didn't know what kind of reception we were actually going to receive in Algeria because for lack of a better word, the split had started emerging in the party. I was elated that the sisters embraced me, embraced my husband, the brothers did the same, and I loved the atmosphere of camaraderie there. You know, that's where I learned to be a mother, actually. I'll never forget, I went to our Panther library there at, what was it, Neuf du Detroit? In the embassy, y'all. That was an embassy.
Yeah.
Huh?
It used to be an embassy of
North Vietnam.
the Vietnam
Front
the
for
war,
National
National Liberation Front, and then they were becoming a government. So they said, "Oh, we get a real embassy," and Algeria gave their gorgeous building to us.
I mean, that's a heck of a thing, you know? And here I am, 19 years old, surrounded by, first time out of the country, surrounded by people from all over the world, you know? And I was very, very impressed, but I was ready to deal with it because in our political education classes in Kansas City and these classes that were required in chapters and branches all across America, we were taught to be members of the global community. We were taught that it was about international solidarity. So we were all ready to deal with that. And my experiences there impacted and continue to impact our lives, the lives that we live in Tanzania, where we have carried on the community service of the Black Panther Party. I'm able to relate to anybody all around the world with confidence and vim and vigor. And these sisters were some of my role models, you know. I mean, I can remember Sister Kathleen with her different posters, and I had some of your posters on my wall.
Okay.
You know, as many of us did, and as I had posters of Brother Pete O'Neill even before I met him and never knew that we would be married, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were a family. And we all had different roles to play. We all had to cook on some days, and I remember I couldn't cook. And Brother Pete could, and I remember calling him up on the phone one day in tears, probably because of the hormones of me being pregnant. And he came over there and had to help me fix gravy for like 50 people. And you know, it's something many people forget, that yes, we were revolutionaries, we continue to be revolutionaries, but we were people too. We were mothers and fathers, and well, we wasn't grandparents back then.
Yeah.
You know, and all of this was on the job training for so many of us. You know, to be thrust into a completely different culture. It was basically Islamic culture there, and I remember that here I was pregnant and wearing mini skirts in an Islamic country, and that did not go over well. And that shows the naivete that not only I had, but some of our other comrades had about living and thriving in a different culture, you know. But the everyday experiences were just beautiful. I started to talk about the library, and I was the kind of sister who thought that all women, when they give birth, they have to have painful births, right? I went into the library one day, and this book just jumped out at me. It was the Lamaze Method of Natural Childbirth. And that's how I learned about myself as a woman and about myself as a mother. And Malcolm, our first son, my only son, was born in a Chinese hospital way up in the hills of Medea, like 60 miles away from the headquarters and where we lived. And, you know, I'd been studying the Laban's method, and all these doctors had on their chairman outfits, and I said, I'll be doggone if I show any pain in front of these comrades, you know. And because of that mindset and because of the breathing exercise and all that, it was beautiful. You know, as my whole experience there was beautiful. I'm actually writing my memoirs now, and I'll put a lot of those experiences into some experience we ain't gonna never tell y'all, you know, but some we can share, because the life that we lived, I think, was a very, very positive example that other people can learn a lot from. And like I said, I continue to be informed by it. What about it, brother? We okay with time? Oh, sister, how much, 7 minutes?
No technology.
Wow, okay. Yeah, so,
I know it has to be 7.
seriously, I'm thinking what else I can share. And I myself do like to keep conversations kind of light, because we're dealing with so much pressure these days all over the world, you know. And I was even saying yesterday in a presentation that I did that we can't forget our joy. You know, we can't forget that. We can't forget to honor those who have made their transition, all our freedom fighters, you know. And to me, being able to express our joy even in the midst of all this terror that's going on, that's a revenge. And also the fact that we've been able to carry on community service at a high level for all these years, that's the greatest revenge.
In the back of this book, several years back, I wrote a little piece of poetry, and I'm going to read it to you now. A life of memories. Yesterday's memories are captured on film, in books, in black and white pictures, and some oral histories. They are filled with love, youth, adventure, romanticism, friendship, revolution, and for some of us, pain. I, for one, thank the gods for it all. At the time, I can't really remember what made me write those words down, but they're really good. Even reading them is kind of a little pain. In 1967, I met Kathleen. She was fresh off the plane, right? Came, yeah, remember?
From Atlanta.
Yeah, and that's another story, but anyway. You know, I was at San Francisco State, and at that time, the BSU, Black Student Union, they were raising hell, okay? Also, the thing that I liked about State was the whole cultural movement. I mean, Don L.E., Mata Booty, Sonia Sanchez, Baraka, and you had the Black House, right? Remember the Black Elvis?
I was over by the time I got here.
Okay, yeah. So we would go to the Black House, and you would have all this entertainment, and you know, it was a lot. It was a lot. And then working, Emery introduced me one day. He said, I got the man for you. I'm working at the Ice Cream A-Go-Go. So long story short, I met DC. I had no idea who he was. No idea, just another brother, you know, seemed real nice. Until one night, little Bobby Hutton kicked in my door. And the Forte brothers came in. They came in like this, right? They saw DC. Sorry, brother. He said, where you know them boys? I said, well, they were part of Bobby, Huey, Elvis. I mean, the original people. Well, that kept me from getting my butt kicked a lot of times, okay? And when I remind some of the Panthers, when I see them, I say, you remember that you wanted to kick my butt? Not me, sister. Not me. I was put on a punishment for 30 days. Breakfast program, sell papers, get back, do PE class, cook, and then stay up all night with Sam Napier doing the papers. At the end of the 30 days, they said, can you hang around? Because you seem to know what you're doing, just like Kat said, just like Kat said. And of course, I was a little petty bourgeois Catholic girl from Philadelphia. So, but you see, when you see the love that we shared in our particular branches, that is something you can never forget. Then, of course, Bobby got arrested. Erica was in jail. Huey was still in jail. And there was Bobby Hutton had gotten killed. Elvidge was on the run. It was a lot. And, of course, by this time, I'm pregnant. So when Elvidge and D.C. called, and D.C. said, when's the baby due? I said, August. Come on over to Algiers. I packed the bag. I don't remember whether it was my side that took me over or Big Man. I can't remember, but I think it was my side. I get to Algiers. I'm like, Kathleen's running out the door to catch a plane to North Korea. I spend one night in the house. And
then you got on a plane to North Korea.
I got on a plane with a courier for North Korea. And he had the suitcase handcuffed to his hands. He don't speak no English. I don't speak no Korean. They put me in a hotel for one day, and the next day I'm on a plane to North Korea.
That's because she was pregnant.
Yeah.
That's
And
why I
she's
was in
pregnant.
North Korea.
We're
to
both
have a
pregnant.
baby. Because we had one baby in Algiers.
Yeah.
And Elder said, not again.
But the thing about North Korea, of course, by then we were Juche, Kim Il-sung. That was really an adventure. And we had a student that used to come, and Kathleen and I were so silly. We would say, here comes that gorgeous brother. We were. But I think that's another story. But here's the... But here's the best part. We were there about 3 months, almost 3 months. Kathleen has her baby, and I had mine about 2 weeks later, something like that. Guess what they asked me? How come your baby's white? She's white, so we understand her having a white baby. But why you got a white baby? You got color. You know what I did, don't you? Like Charlotte said, you got to read. I had Ebony, Jet, Dr. Spock, and Newsweek. And they were like, they knew Africans, but they didn't know us. You see, now everybody knows us. All over the place. Okay, so we had the babies. We had to leave the first week in October because the Korean winters are so cold. We couldn't have got through it, okay? We go back to Russia, Moscow. We go up in Hotel Peking, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Hotel Peking, which is for foreigners, okay? I told Kathleen, I'm going out to find some Pampers. Hair out, short dress. I go into the department store, and of course everybody's looking. They're really freaking out, you know. And I said, I want to get some Pampers. I said, they're made of paper. They got a little plastic at the bottom. Pampers. The woman said, why would anybody want something you throw away? I was like, okay, I'll take a dozen diapers. We'll wash them out. I'm on my way back upstairs, and I see a Time magazine, and there was a black woman on the front. And at the time, I was like, that can't be me. But who that?
Was it Angela?
It was Angela. We had no, when they say the Iron Curtain, they mean the Iron Curtain, okay? So we get the, what's Huey out? Huey was in Philadelphia. Remember us standing on the bed with the radio?
Constitutional Convention.
Exactly.
We actually heard this on the radio in North Korea.
Yeah.
The Constitutional Convention, well, they North Korean radio broadcast it. You probably didn't hear it in America.
Yeah, but really just, so we read about Angela. Oh, that was before the North Koreans gave us the names to name our children. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, she rejected it. I kept it.
She kept.
My daughter's name is Jojo Younghee.
Yeah. Now, my husband had sent a telegram. Name the baby Jonathan Carlos Cox. Well, who the hell is Jonathan? It's an English name. What is that? But we didn't know. But a long story short, he was Jonathan, after Jonathan Jackson, and Carlos Marangella, a Catholic priest in Uruguay who died but fought the fight. So, you know, we get back, and one thing I do remember when Charlotte was talking about the food, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So I had to find something to do. Kathleen was an interpreter. She's running around. We had set up a little lightweight nursery so we could watch the babies. You had just about come then, too, just about when you came. But I'm not a person that sits around. I'm a worker. I got to move. And the liberation fronts were all over Algiers. I'm walking down the street, and I hear somebody say, Barbara. And I turn around, and guess what? It's a girl from South Philly, where I grew up.
Wow.
She's married to a brother from Swapo. So I immediately start joining her in what I call women's circles. And where do women gather? In the kitchen. And in the kitchen, this woman, that woman, they're talking about their husbands. I loved it. So I would always come back and tell DC, you know, I was over at Swapo, and you know what's going on in South Africa, and that girl over there told me this. He was like, where you getting all this information? I ain't heard that. But and that lasted about, when did I leave? 71.
We went to Germany. I can't remember when
Yeah.
we left. You went to, was it 71?
Oh, we went, well, we had gone to Germany
Before.
6 months before.
But you went back.
Well, Kathleen had a speaking engagement at Germany, and she'll tell you about that.
No.
Oh, no, what?
They kicked me out of the country.
Yeah, they kicked us
And then
out.
I snuck back in.
And we snuck back in. It was crazy. But it was Thanksgiving. Heidelberg, was it Heidelberg? Well, anyway.
Heidelberg was unsatisfied black soldiers. It was a
Yeah.
group in Germany of black
Yeah.
brothers who were stationed there, and they had an organization called Unsatisfied Black Soldiers, USB, and they invited me to speak to them. And the first time they invited me, the French people tried to get me not to get on the plane. And they said, well,
Yeah.
if you go to Germany, they're not going to let you in. I'm going to go anyway. So I went
They
anyway, and
didn't.
they held me up in the airport and sent me back. But then I came again the next year.
And she made the mistake of saying, well, come on, Barbara. And I'm sitting right there, okay? She's up here, and guess what I saw? More black men, more beautiful than I could ever deal with, okay? I was like, whoa. I don't want to go back to America. I want to go to Germany.
And you stayed. You stayed.
I stayed about a year and a half. That was good. Wait, no. But seriously, I joined a group called Voice of the Lumpen.
A newspaper.
A newspaper dealing with the whole Vietnam issue, desertion, etc. And French, African American, Surinamese, or coming down from Amsterdam, particularly Swedish. I'm trying to think. I think it was somebody else, but we were, again, international. Good. Okay. But those are the adventures that you never forget, and you don't forget the people. And I come back to America in '73. I was shocked. I didn't hear Sister Love anymore. Some drugs had become pervasive. I felt very lost. And even though I would go to New York and see Zayd, Afeni, and all the Panthers in New York, you felt a loneliness. And so, long story short, you get involved with other things. But there will never be anything like the Black Panther Party in my life again.
Well, I guess I'm going to go last. But before I start, I want to just acknowledge there's some soldiers, some lifelong freedom fighters in this audience. Some of them I know, some of them I don't. But one of them I know who just walked in is Bilal Sunni Ali. Would you please stand up?
Oh! Whoa! Whoa!
When did you start in the movement? How old were you? He started at 19. He ain't left yet. And long held political prisoner, King Wilderson, and Albert Woodfox. Come on,
Yes,
stand up. Where?
Eddie Conway.
And somebody who spent over 40 years behind bars because he was a Black Panther, Eddie Conway.
Right. Yes. All right.
Stand up, Eddie. Where is he? Over there. Oh, there he is.
Oh, okay.
Real News. He works for the Real News Network. There he is.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is an amazing point in history. Actually, this gathering is historic. Now do you think about the time, the place, and who's here? Thank you so much. I'm so pleased that I lived long enough to get here, and since I got here, I'll probably get a whole lot more places. You know, I am a senior citizen, proud to be a senior citizen. Who knew? Who knew? We knew. Who knew I lived to 72? Anyway, I left the United States in 1969 to join Eldridge, who I believed, and at the time I left, I think he was in Cuba.
Yeah.
Because he had to get out of Dodge pretty quickly. He got arrested in a shootout in Oakland with the Oakland police 2 days after Martin Luther King was murdered. Mm-hmm. He was arrested, went to jail, and guess what? A judge let him out on bail. Mm-hmm. He really did. $50,000 bail, he got out. And ran for president on the Peace and Freedom Party ticket. Did a lot of things. He couldn't believe it. He just couldn't believe it. He was, actually, most of you don't know Eldridge. He wasn't here long enough. He left, he got out of jail in 66 and he was gone in 68, I think. 68. So, but he was actually very playful and had a great sense of humor. Most people don't think of him that way. But so he had gone to Montreal after he was ordered to return to prison when he got out on bail. He'd gone to Montreal, and from Montreal he'd gone to Cuba. By the time he got to Cuba, I discovered that I was pregnant. And I said, oh my goodness, Oh, well, I would like to be with my husband when this baby is born. And so I tried to figure out how to get to Cuba. Well, you can't figure it out in the United States. So I went to Paris so I could figure it out in Paris. I knew someone there, the daughter of Richard Wright. Well, I didn't know her. I knew her mother, Ellen Wright. And they said, Ellen Wright will help you. So I go to Paris to try and find Ellen Wright, and she finds her daughter, and they're going to help me get to Cuba so I can be with my husband. And so 45 minutes before I get on the plane, you have to get a visa in Paris, in France, if you want to go to Algiers on an American passport. So I get the visa, I wait 2 weeks to get it, I get to the airport, and I get to, I'm on my way to my hotel to pack to go to the airport, and this man walks up to me and he says, my name is Lee Lockwood, and I have a message for you from Eldridge. And I never saw Lee Lockwood. I knew him. He was a well-known photographer. So I said, well, he has a camera on his back, and he looks like an American. So I just had to take his word for it that he was Lee Lockwood. Sit down. He said, I have a message for you from Eldridge. When you get to Algiers, wait. Do not get a plane to Cuba because he will come to see you there. Oh. So I end up missing my plane. I get to Algiers at midnight. And Emory Douglas was with me, so I wasn't by myself. But the airport is empty. And so we asked some people, where's the hotel? People had told us in France, go to the Hotel Saint-Georges. So so I get in a taxi, and I can speak enough French, is go to the Hotel Saint-Georges. So you get up in the morning, and I say, I've got to contact the Cubans and tell them I am here. And I do. And turns out the Cuban I contacted had no idea of anything I was talking about, except that you need to talk to a different Mr. Garcia, which is a code name, to tell the Cubans that I had come and I was here to meet Eldridge. What I had no way of knowing is that Eldridge had kind of alienated a lot of Cubans and they didn't like him that much. Same story. But anyway, eventually we connect. And he said, they told me he will take you to Cuba. He said, I won't ever see Cuba again. You know, so we're going to stay in Algiers, unbeknownst to the Algerians. Later on, we discover that there's a plan, a major plan from the Organization of African Unity to host something called the first Pan-African Cultural Festival in Algiers. Long story short, Eldridge meets freedom fighters from, what do they call it? Not Southern Rhodesia. No, the one that used to be Rhodesia. Zimbabwe, who speak English. And they hook us up with different people that ultimately we're able to arrange to stay in Algiers because in a few weeks they're going to have something called the first Pan-African Cultural Festival. So they said, well, just lay low until then, and then we'll welcome you. Because your name was on the invitation list. They were going to invite a delegation of Black Panthers anyway. So this is very serendipity that I'm hiding, he's hiding, but we're actually invited to the first Pan-African Cultural Festival. And Eldridge spoke there on the same day, I think it was June 17th, at the opening of the festival, about the moon landing, that's what happened. And he said, we don't care about what happens on the moon, we care about what happens here. You know, so it was, and I was 8 months pregnant. So I didn't go to too many of these festival things. I had a baby in a hospital that Cubans ran, so thank God I had doctors that spoke English. And since it was Cuban-run hospital, this is called technical cooperation. The countries who are on the same side help each other. Like Israel helped certain countries, and Algeria would help others, and the Cubans helped certain countries, and Algeria was one of them. So I had a Cuban doctor. Thank God he spoke English. Perfect English. And so my son was born in Algiers, and we named him Maceo because Eldridge had been in Cuba, and he was referencing Antonio Maceo, who's a huge leader in Cuba. There's a huge statue of him. And so he was named Antonio Maceo. He was named Maceo, Eldridge Maceo, actually. And so my life as a we created something called the international section of the Black Panther Party because we're there. But my life there was divided. On one hand, because I could speak French, I was the interpreter and worked and did political work. But on the other hand, I had a little baby, so I had to be a mother and take care of him. And I had a better experience interpreting than being a mother. But he survived. He survived. He not only survives, this is a child who's born in Algeria. At the present moment, in his 40s, he lives in Saudi Arabia. He teaches English to Arabic-speaking people. He's completely fluent in English, and he's gone completely Islamic and has 3 wives and a whole bunch of children. So, he was born in the right place. My daughter, I was born in North Korea because Eldridge had visited there, and he said the second time I got pregnant, he said, we're not doing this in Algeria again. Shipped me with the consent of the Algerian. We were given a facility in an area where there were other embassies of friendly countries, and the embassy closest to us was the embassy of North Korea. Well, they don't call it North Korea, but we do. The closest, so we became very good friends. And they would visit us, and we'd go to their events, et cetera. And so when it was time for me to have a second baby, the agreement was made that I'd go to North Korea because, I know you're looking at me like I'm crazy, yes, because he was going to be leading a delegation of Americans to different countries in Asia. One was Vietnam and one was North Korea. So at least he could come there and I would be there. So these are the kind of adjustments the international section of the Black Panther Party were making. And I will say it did seem like it was a normal thing to do, to pick up and go to North Korea. I mean, it wasn't impossible. And besides, I'd had a baby in Algeria. And so we just had to adapt. And, like many Americans, it's like you figure it out when you get there. Or let's deal with it. It's like nothing's really impossible. It's just difficult. That's how we in the Black Panther Party looked at it. We in the international section, our environment was very communal. We shared work. We shared. Nobody shared interpreting with me too much, but there were some Europeans who. Every now and then, a French woman who would come in and interpret. So we had essentially an embassy. It wasn't really an embassy, but it was a facility that was extraordinary because it had been the headquarters of the National Liberation Front. And then they became the Provisional Revolutionary Government, and they got even bigger headquarters, and they moved out of this huge facility. It was a villa and with a courtyard and a gate in a neighborhood in Algeria called El Biar. El Biar used to be a white neighborhood when it was part of France. So it was a very, very lovely area. They moved into their bigger facility, and we took their plaque off the door and put a golden plaque that said International Section Black Panther Party. Which we stayed in. How long were we there, Barbara? 3 years?
Oh, just about.
I think she left and went to West Germany. Finally, after 2 hijackings, 2 planes were hijacked. The first one, the Algerians were very, very upset that somebody named Roger Holder and his girlfriend named Kathy Kirkhow hijacked a plane all the way to Algiers. They started in Coos Bay, Oregon, and went to San Francisco, and then went to New York, and they didn't know where they were going. They didn't. And they said, well, take it to Algiers. So they get off the plane with a bag of money. I think they had $50,000, which the Algerians relieved them of. Returned it to the plane, and then they took the plane and took the money and gave the plane back to the company, the money back to the plane, and gave us the hijackers. Well, do you think that would be the end of it? No. Then another 2 months later, a plane with 5 people from Detroit come on hijacking a plane.
Yeah.
2 women, 2 children, and 4 men. And they had gotten the first group had demanded a $50,000 ransom. This group demanded a $100,000 ransom. So when they get to Algiers, the government of Algeria takes them, takes their money, takes the plane, which was a Delta airline plane that they hijacked, and gave us all these hijackers. Boy, I didn't know it, but that was the beginning of the end of the international section of the Black Panther Party. At one point, we were all sitting around talking about, what are we going to do? There's 13, 15, 17 people here. How are we going to support all these people? They're all fugitives. They all speak English. How are we going to handle this? I would say within either 24 hours or less of that meeting, we were surrounded by Algerian police.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we're going to take all your weapons. You can stay here. But they basically let us know that they were tired of us. Tired of the Black Panthers, tired of the hijacking. And I won't say it was a police state, but I will say it was a military government.
Yeah.
And it's also a country that's Muslim, and it's extremely, what's the right word? A traditional society that had gone through a revolution. So their values were very different to our revolutionary change and men and women, very different to ours. I don't know if they were suspicious of us or anything, but it was clearly the time that we could have an international section in Algiers with the support of the government had come to screeching halt. And everybody that was there had to figure out where they're going to go, what place, what country, how they're going to make it. I think Charlotte and Pete went to Tanzania, where there were other people from Kansas City. Yeah. Barbara had already gone to Germany. DC had already gone somewhere. Where had he gone? He'd gone underground to France. And Sekou Odinga was there for a while. I'm trying to figure out, where did Sekou go? I can't remember. He went somewhere. Did he go to Setoweo Tabor?
Yeah.
He left and went to Zambia because he'd been down there as a journalist.
Right.
And Eldridge decided, he said, well, I've been in the third world. I've seen it. I want to go somewhere else. He went to Paris. Yeah. Everybody went somewhere when the government said it was over, the Algerian government, and I was the last person standing because I had an American passport and I wasn't wanted. Yeah. So I could just go. I could go fly, buy a ticket. And Eldridge had gone to somewhere in the south of France clandestinely. I'll give you just a little snippet. Eldridge was ex-convict, and he was walking in the streets in Paris. Now, he's about 6'3", built like Muhammad Ali, and has green eyes. And this man came up to him in Paris, and he looked at him, and he said, a former convict, said, man, you look like Eldridge Cleaver. He said, keep it quiet, I'm underground.
That happened to us in Tunisia, in a souk.
A souk, they found you?
Yeah,
they found you?
Same thing.
Yes. But it sounds entertaining. It really wasn't all that entertaining, but it wasn't boring. It wasn't boring, and we had to figure out how to survive financially, how to survive. And by this time, Eldridge and I have 2 children. Mm-hmm. So someone gave us an apartment that they owned in Paris that no one was living in. Guess what? The street that it was on, across the street, was the Institute of the Deaf and Dumb. So I said, well, at least nobody will be able to tell we're here. They won't snitch on us.
People don't,
But of all people, Jean Genet, who was friends with the people who helped Eldridge escape, came and told them that he wanted to meet Eldridge. And so they arranged a meeting. And he came to the little apartment we had in the 14th arrondissement in France, across from the deaf and dumb school. He said, what brought you to Paris? And he said, well, so-and-so came. I think Benjamin Franklin came, and this one came, and he had all this historical references. They looked at him, and he said, do you actually, and he said, in France is a country of democracy. Do you actually believe this? He actually did believe it. I mean, actually it worked, but it worked because he had friends who were willing to help him. We ended up, through friends of his, being invited to lunch with Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, who was going to become the next head of state. And he told us that he has an alliance with another politician named Chirac, who was the mayor, and that he would be in a position in the future to give us residence permits. So this is how things worked. It wasn't any demonstration. It wasn't any application. It was this woman who was very beautiful and a photographer who Giscard d'Estaing wanted to get her attention, and she was just, please, no, send a present, send it back. And he said, then she met Eldridge and she said, well, actually, Giscard, there is something you can do. What is it, my dear? What is it, my dear? You can give residence permits to this family, and then their children can go to the nursery school. That's all. That's how we got to be able to live in France. And so, and then at a certain point, Eldridge decided he wanted to go home. I lived out of the country a lot. I didn't particularly have to go, but he hadn't. He really hadn't. He lived in California. That's it. Arkansas, California prisons, San Francisco, California. And being in Cuba and Algeria and France, he really didn't feel himself, and he wanted to go home. That's why he surrendered, because he was homesick. No, he really was. He really was. And he didn't see any future. He didn't see any future living. He could have stayed in Paris the rest of his life. He just couldn't do that. So, and a lot of people didn't understand why. But anybody here been in prison a long time? Yeah, you might understand why he wanted to get back to, get back home. Where he's known, where he understands things, where he can eat the food he wants. And so nobody thinks he's strange here. But he wasn't willing to stay in France, and so he surrendered. He came back, went to Alameda County Jail, and eventually, because of all the corruption that had happened in Oakland while he'd been gone, but we didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So any police that had to testify about why he was out of the country and why he was, they were dirty. So they kept saying, why'd you come back? Why'd you come back? Why didn't you just stay gone? And eventually it turned out they just wanted him gone. We'll reduce all the charges against you. He was charged with 3 counts of attempted assault on police officers, a human being. That's what the charges said. Because I guess they put it there because we used to call them pigs. So, police officer, a human being. Anyway, he got out on bail, and which is amazing. It's absolutely extraordinary. This is America. This is California. He got out on bail, and then long story short, he proceeded to become very unusual, maybe a little mentally disturbed, I don't know. But, he did the best he could in this country to change things. Yeah. Everybody may want to change things, but they really don't risk as much. They don't risk everything. Panthers did. Panthers did.
Yeah. They did. Yeah.
I'm just glad I'm here to live to tell it to you. Power to the people.
Power to the people.
So are we gonna do a Q&A?
Where's
It's noon.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Let's stand up. Stand up,
Stand up.
Charlie. It looks like you have a Q&A set up. Is that what this is for? Is somebody going to moderate it?
Well, while y'all are getting set up, while the hijackings were going on that Sister Kathleen was talking about, my parents were there, my in-laws were there, our niece and nephews, so their mind was blown. I'll never forget that.
Neither will they.
Where were they day? But what's interesting, in '75, the Algerian government offered D.C. citizenship, but he had to become a Muslim. And I know he wasn't going to do that. He was like, nah. But the one thing when Kathleen was talking about friendships, he had gone to Brazil. That's another story. But he's down in Brazil, and I said, I'll have to learn to speak Spanish. And he said, no, they speak Portuguese. Don't you know nothing? Of course, I was like, I'll fix you, boy. Well, I didn't speak to him for almost 2 or 3 years. And then some brothers out here in California said, sis, we got to get him back to France. And in Brazil, you have to cross the border to get your passport stamped or something. He missed the bus. He had a phone book. This is to show you how you never know who you're going to need tomorrow, okay? And he asked the guard at the border, he said, can I make one phone call? And the guard said, okay, what number? He said, this is just an example of how important people become. He said, Vice President Nixon, Ford, whatever, some president, right? And the guard went, you know them? And he dialed the number, and the man said, give him anything he wants. So when he was telling me this story about going back to France, he said, Barbara, you never know who you're going to need tomorrow and how that works. Because I remember he had to get the permit to work, and he couldn't come out at night for almost a year. But it was like a federal judge that said, here, you got to permit friendships. And in France, I discovered a very large Jewish population that had been around since World War II. And I was very shocked. I mean, somebody picked me up one day and said, stand on that corner. No, standing there. Oh, you the American. This man took me to the 23rd floor of this palatial apartment. He was like the vice president of Ritz Crackers or something, you know, something like that. I was like, okay. And a lot of us would not have made it if it wasn't for friendships.
None of us would have made it. Are we supposed to do a Q&A here? Can we get a moderator? Can we get a volunteer?
Those mics are good to go.
Moderate. Go, girl. Come on. Sit right here. Question and answer. You have to keep order.
My name is Jazz Monique Hudson. I'm going to moderate this Q&A session.
Okay.
Say that again. Okay, I'm going to step up. I will say before I step up, let's keep the questions to questions, elongated statements.
Yeah.
I know we're all blessed to be here amongst you sisters, but let's keep them to questions. And under a minute, please. Your question under a minute.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Good morning. I'm going to use my minute for statement per question, if you don't mind. I will be very brief. Okay, I'll be very brief. Okay. I am a professor at San Francisco State University. I am so happy that so many people here are from San Francisco State and what you have done. Okay. Secondly, I'm Palestinian. I'm inspired by the Black Panther Party, what you have done, what you have been doing, and your position from the time that you have started until today with people who are continuing day in and day out, struggling and supporting independence, justice, freedom all over the world. I wanted to ask you two questions. One is if you mentioned John Genet. John Genet was supportive of the Panthers. He was also very supportive of the Palestinians. You also were in Algiers, which was Algeria, the first country. And the reason that it actually, maybe it wasn't the first country, but it was the reason it welcomed the Panthers, because it had just come out of a decolonial process and actually fought a war liberation thing. So I was wondering if you can actually speak to the whole question of connections of national liberation movements.
Yes.
The Panthers, and the second question I'm asking you is about the history. The history, because there is a lot of ways in which our histories I'm not talking about I'm not talking about the Palestinian history. It's okay, that's another thing. About the history of the Panthers and the history of the women and the ways in which the histories of struggle get erased and written in different ways. And this conference is really important to do that. So I'm just wondering if you can elaborate more on that.
Yes,
Thank you.
Professor. You have a professor question. I want to tell you. I want to tell you that the first people in Algiers, when we became publicly there, we were in the Pan-African Cultural Festival. The very first people we worked with were Palestinians because they could speak English.
Yep.
And they were there, and they understood. And they were, some of them are quite young and had very radical, intense ideas. And they identified with us, and, you know, it's just like to talk about killing and who were they going to kill, who were they going to kill first. You know, I mean, we did that too, you know. So, but they were young, they were all men, and they were very, very, very upset about America, which is backing Israel. And so we had a natural affinity with the Palestinians. In fact, when we were invited to the Pan-African Cultural Festival, they gave us like a storefront, but we had to fix it up. Now, who helped us? Palestinians, because we could speak English. You know, so it was very, and that solidarity continues until I think a group, some people are here that went in a group, what is it, Claude? Did you go to Palestine? There was a delegation from here. How many people went with you? Yeah. Yeah, so you win it. It's your delegation. Okay, cool. But no, this is a sort of a natural affinity of people who don't really have control over their country. They have a nationality, it's not respected. They're treated like second-class citizens. So we have a lot of affinity. We love you, and we know you love us.
Okay.
Thank you first and foremost for everything. Thank you. I'm Jocelyn Imani. I have a question. So many of us today are wrestling with this issue of gender, fragile masculinity, toxic masculinity, feminism, womanism. How do we identify? How do we, all of that jazz? So can y'all speak to, one, did you or do you identify as feminist? And how did you deal with those questions of gender in your time?
Well, let me get started. Let's start.
You know, I myself do not identify as a feminist because I can remember back in the 60s and the 70s, it seemed like a ploy to divide us. And I always say, hey, it wasn't about women being ahead of the men, women being wherever. No, we all getting oppressed, so I think that is just a ploy to divide us. I really do.
Well, I would like to say what we functioned under was a different structure, different mental structure, solidarity.
Yes.
We are in solidarity with people who are fighting imperialism. We are in solidarity with people who are fighting racism. We are women in solidarity with men. The men are in solidarity with us. So the concept of collaboration, working hard together instead of identity. Identity does not necessarily mean you're going to be a revolutionary. It's going to mean you have an identity.
Right. Yeah. And I remember when I was stationed in Philadelphia, and coming from the West Coast, they thought that was very important. And they put women out front. And that question of feminism, the only thing that ever meant to me was, you don't have to wear a bra. Get the hell out of here, But like Kathleen said, all of us had to learn how to break down, clean a gun. And you better know how to shoot.
Come on.
So when the enemy's coming at you, he don't ask you, are you a feminist? Are you an LBGT? He knows who you are.
That's right.
So, and when I look through history books on what I call black women's history, strength has always come from Mother Nature, okay? So labels don't mean nothing unless you willing to die for them.
Yeah. Come on.
So I see we have a line forming over here. So sister, I'm going to take you and then I'm going to come back this way. So we're going to go side to side, all right? Because this line seems to be a little bit longer. And again, let's keep your question to under a minute. No statements, just questions.
Okay. Just questions. Okay. Hi. Thank you so much for sharing today. It's really great to be here. It's an inspiration. I'm a member of the Freedom Socialist Party. It's a socialist feminist group in the Bay Area and internationally. And I know that one of the things that contributed to the success of the Black Panther Party was a revolutionary program with Marxist roots and strong women like you working so hard. And so I guess, can you share what you think would be effective organizing tactics to continue to agitate and mobilize the people in the US and internationally, and your thoughts about the importance of holding strong to a Marxist, feminist, anti-capitalist program and working across color lines and international struggles? Thanks.
Wow. Wow.
Take 3 parts. That's a 3-part question.
Yeah, that's a three-part question.
Will anybody get a degree when we answer it?
You know, my husband and I lived in a socialist my husband and I lived in Tanzania, still live in Tanzania, which was a working socialist country, you know, and to me, socialism can really work, but I think on a small scale, you know, I think that when you start getting into implementing socialism or Marxism or communism or whatever, on a large scale, it just changes. You know, I think that what we have established in Tanzania at our community center is really, really an example of working socialism. You know, where everyone has a voice. You know, we don't say feminists, we don't abide by feminist principles, but everyone has a voice, you know. And one of the ways that we have been able to really affect change is through hip hop, you know, and I'm talking about positive hip hop, conscious hip hop, because that encourages international solidarity, and you can see it in every country. So, and that's a practical thing to do. You know, you can talk about lofty ideals and all that, but you got to be practical in this emergency situation that's ringing the world. Yeah.
Also, very often young people come and you're invited to classrooms and, well, what do you think we should do now? I'm not the one to ask.
Right.
Okay? I can only tell you what happened yesteryear.
Right.
You know, you can talk to your contemporaries, but the thing that I've noticed is I also advocate talking to your parents, grandparents, that crazy uncle that likes to drink wine and talk shit, okay? But the bottom line really becomes, Kathleen gave me her smartphone a minute ago and told me, well, push that and go and find out the date. I ain't got a clue, okay? I get my email. I know how to open stuff. I know how to send it. It's your time. You got Facebook. You have the technology.
Right.
Okay? So we can go back to yesteryear and talk about Marxism and all that. But the bottom line really is not too much is going to change unless you change it. But I would advocate, be careful, because the beast that chased us, he's a monster now. He is real. And 9/11, I told my girlfriend, why don't you change your name? Go back to Mary Jane. Because this beast is a beast. And the technology that he has been, and the laws, I would definitely say some of the laws that we don't even know about. In Oregon, if you collect rainwater, you got to pay for it. Come on. So, I mean, come on. It's so much going on. There's no shortage of information or stories that a million people can't share. You know, it's not just about some Marxism now. It's about, will you live to see 50 years go by?
I just want to be very brief and respond that what we were dealing with, and we knew all those terms, and we studied those ideologies. We had political requirements and political education classes, and we read the Red Book and many other things. However, what's important is the practical application.
Yeah.
not in ideological purity. And that's what happens even in countries that have a socialist government, that they have to deal with the practical application. So where that's what it's about.
Yeah.
That's it. Next question.
Okay, go ahead.
Greetings. My name is Falila Aisha Bilal, daughter of Rafiq Bilal and Saisa Neal. So I was born into the Black Power movement in Washington, D.C. My parents were founding members of the Black Men's Volunteer Army of Liberation, a very similar paramilitary agency in the East Coast, similar to the Panthers here. And my question is actually connected to what you were bringing up, this element of us as movement builders and how we heal and care for ourselves. I'm so thankful, and I was brought to tears when Mama C was speaking in the very beginning, because I'm here with some high school students. We have an all-girls program of girls, Black and Latino girls. And so for me, thank you. For me and Jazz to be here and to bring our students here, and we were both raised in a Black Power movement, it's like the circle is complete. And the completion of that, and my question is around how you care for self. I loved it, Mama Barbara, when you said, I'm a human. Like this whole time I was pregnant. You know, I'm not just this political activist that people read about. And so I was wondering if you could speak to those of us that are still here working day in and day out about how we care for ourselves, and maybe some of the lessons that the Panthers didn't have 50 or 40 years ago that we need to hear as young activists now. And thank you. I salute you.
You know, I think there was a mistake in that we were following the Marxist line so closely that we adhere to what Marx said, religion is the opiate of the masses. I think that we forgot our spirituality as African people, as people of color, as human beings. Spirituality and embracing that spirituality, looking back to our ancestors, to learn from our ancestors is one of the most powerful things that you can do to heal yourself and to build our communities. I advise you all, never forget your spirituality. That's very, very important in the healing process. Yes, it is. Yes.
You made a statement, you said those of us who are still here. We're still here.
Yes, all of us.
Like I said, your parents are still here, grandparents, crazy uncle in the corner. And you got to talk to everybody. You got to talk to them because they all have some little history that's going to energize you and keep you going. So everybody's still here. We just slower.
Thank you.
I ain't.
The next question. We need no more, we have enough. We need to get to the more questions.
Can I take this brother right here? A sister with the hat, you were standing in the line first? Yes. Thank you.
Kia ora. I'm from the Polynesian Panther Party in New Zealand. I just want to pay my respect as a Minister of Culture and their first community worker. I just want to pay my respects. This is a statement. No questions from me. Everything that you've said today has just so, and I just want to bring our love from our people, from Aotearoa, New Zealand. We have 6 members attending today. 2 are and my sister Betty Seal.
Stand up.
Betty Seal. And we also have 3 other brothers that are attending Emery Douglas's workshop this morning. We are being hosted by Emery. But what I want to say, I just really want to give thanks for you 3 sisters and for all the sisters, Erica Huggins and also Elaine Brown, who we met this morning. So utterly respects. And just so we followed the Black Panther Party from their 10-point program, and that's how we started. We're 45 years old this year. Wow. So we had our celebrations and things. In New Zealand, and we will have to start preparing for our 50th. So we're still going, and yes, I understand we have children, grandchildren, and respect and to your children and to your mokopunas, which is grandchildren, to your families. and that we can still tell the stories and have the stories recorded. They're not stories, they were life.
Yes.
And they still continue to be our life. And without that 10-point platform program from the Black Panther Party, we wouldn't be able to accomplish and continue to accomplish our struggles, which are the same here as today, right today. It's the same thing. We have done workshops around California, and people go, wow, we didn't know. We've showed, PowerPoints, and they didn't realize what was, how intense it was down we're at the end of the earth, New Zealand. So, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
All power to the people. Salute. Much respect.
Yes, respect.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Excuse me. Are there any Native Americans in this audience right now? Especially anybody that's dealing with that damn pipeline? No. Yes? Okay. Okay, well, no, that's all right. That's all right. I just wanted to acknowledge that struggle that's going on. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So first of all, thank you so much for speaking to us, but also more than that, for the sacrifices you've made in the past and still, undergo. So this question has to do with some remarks that Sister Barbara Easley Cox made early on about the value of masks, tactically, as one proceeds and yeah, right in the beginning you said.
No.
Oh, go ahead.
Did you mean mask that you put on your face?
No, of course not. Of course not. Mask.
Emotions.
What did you say? You mean like the theory, the mask theory?
No, you talked about how sometimes if you go downtown, you got to put on a certain mask for the purposes of,
begging for money. Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay, so I asked about this because yesterday at some panels, a lot of organizers, activist types were asking this kind of question around how to get resources. And at one point, now, hold up. So we know that obviously the party got money from like white liberals at times, got money from the community, but
And selling newspapers.
Right. And now Elaine Brown also talked about sometimes the party just took shit, right? Now, you mentioned Carlos Mariguela earlier, right? The term for this is expropriations. Now, the field marshals knew this, right? Former members of the Black Liberation Army knew this. Exiles. All right, so the lumpen proletariat. Now, I apologize. I got to situate this because it's an important question. I asked this as an organizer organizing the Bronx. I asked this as a theorist. I'm doing a PhD at History of Consciousness where Newton did his work, right? So my question is about, for our generation, when we hear about the history of the Black Panther Party, and excluded is some of these illegal acts that had to be illegal to be successful, had to be illegal, had to be kept quiet to be successful. How do members, our BLM generation now, how do we think about that stuff when?
You know what?
Yeah.
There's somebody who can explain it to you if he wants to. Bilal?
And
that's a real question, but I don't know how much people want to talk about that.
No, and
Let him.
yeah,
Let
but
Bilal do it.
yeah, and Bilal, take him out back and talk to him. Don't do
No, let him stand up and let other people hear.
Go ahead, go, come on.
Let's stay here. Stay here. Everybody wants to hear this. Yeah.
Feminism.
A lot of things are in the federal record. You can learn a lot of things about the Black Liberation Army if you study the cases of Black Liberation Army, involving Black Liberation Army members. Too often hear people say, we've been following the case. had people writing me and say, "Oh, we're so proud of what you did, brother." And like, I asked them, "Well, what did I do?" You know, study the case, and study what the prosecutor says, and study what the defense lawyer says, and then you'll get your stories. Study the case and study the background material. Like for instance, in the case of Dr. Mutulu, the United States versus Dr. Mutulu Shakur, while we were defendants, we studied a lot of newspapers, and that's how we found out that there were a lot through studying the police record. That's how we found out that there were a lot of people, a lot of young black people who were trying to emulate the Black Liberation Army. So it didn't come from me making a speech at the 50th anniversary. It came from people. That's how we learned more about.
Yeah.
That's how we learned more about our struggle, by studying about it. And I, encourage people to study about, study struggle, study revolution all around the world, but study revolution in the United States. Study your own revolution and study every aspect of it, particularly those cases that involve members of the Black Liberation Army, and you'll get a wealth of information.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the line is getting longer, and just for the sake of time, about 10 minutes to 1, we're going to take the second to last question. So I would just ask that you be very intentional about your time and ask the question.
Okay, hi. St. James came all the way down from Florida with the Dream Defenders. Squad. Thank y'all so much for the wisdom. This is just unbelievable. All right, so my question real quick is, Ms. Cleaver, this might be quite a touchy subject, but the rift between Huey Newton and Eldridge Cleaver, I'm wondering how much of that was government influence, COINTELPRO, and how much of that was real. And I think you were talking about friendship and what we can do to avoid things like that, tearing apart an organization.
Well, I can speak about that only because after many years, Huey explained it. The deal was this. Huey was on a phone call with Eldridge, and he said some things that were really crazy, et cetera, and ultimately he said, well, you don't agree with this, I'm going to kick you out of the party. What I was going to say, it was kind of obscene and crazy. However, a few years later, he said, well, he was so high on cocaine, he didn't even know what he said. So the whole, it was provoked by behavior that he shouldn't have been engaged in, and now how he got so strung out on cocaine, I don't know. I don't know who did this, okay? So it was real, but he didn't even know what he was saying. And he told us that once he was back in San Quentin for something he did. He was there temporarily, and he called me. He wanted to apologize. I mean, I was flabbergasted. And so it was, that's the story.
And a lot of the split went down because of COINTELPRO. You know, this sending letters to one leader and another, oh, this person is out to get you and this and that. That was, you could look at records now because of Freedom of Information Act where they have blotted out with magic marker. And you can actually see why we were targeted. You know why we were targeted. Many people don't know that COINTELPRO actually started in the 50s, if not the 40s, you know, to prevent a black messiah coming to the fore. So yeah, a lot of that was because of COINTELPRO. And I presume just about all of y'all know what COINTELPRO is. If you don't, you can look it up. Yeah, but thank you for Yes, brother. And you said to prevent that happening again? Yes.
Well, you can't prevent it.
That's right. How can you prevent it?
You can't prevent it, but you can be conscious that it's happening.
Yes.
Well,
hey,
and especially with the technology that you use. I mean, Pam Africa called me one day and she said, I'm lost. I said, oh, well, I'm still standing on Broad Street. And so she said, well, maybe this damn phone will take me to Broad Street because it can do everything. So technology, even though it's a great piece of moving forward, be aware of what you're doing with that thing.
But I would just say, what's most important, really most important, is face-to-face contact, knowing people, knowing their families, knowing where they live. Don't take stuff for granted. And you have organizations in which you have people who come in, infiltrate, et cetera. But who are these people? You have to communicate, acknowledge. And I just got to the point where I had vibes. I went to the first Black Panther meeting before there was any Black Panther party. They said the Panther is coming in New York City. And Sam Anderson, some of you might know him from New York, was there. I met him there. And there was a man, he had a little gray, beige kind of raincoat, a real tight little haircut, little light-skinned Negro. And I just got a bad sensation, and I said, something's wrong with him. Well, he was a policeman. That's what he was. He was a policeman. And you can pick up on it. You might not accept it. You might not know what it is, but you just pay attention. Ask questions. We can't prevent infiltration, but you can be conscious of it and counteract it.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Nellie Wong, and born and raised in Oakland, Chinatown.
Okay.
And a longtime activist with Radical Women and the Freedom Socialist Party. I don't have a question, but I want to share a story. Okay. All right.
Okay.
I will do that.
Yeah, we'll be moving around.
Where do you think the divide comes from?
Which divide?
We are debating or arguing still about whether feminism or womanism is connected to revolutionary politics. Because I think they're connected, and the capitalist system divides us.
Well, as long as you're doing community work, as long as you're doing something to empower our communities, I say right on.
Yeah.
So we just dispense with those labels and just try to join together.
Also, I think you have to acknowledge that in the Black community, the vast majority of political work and social work and other kind of work women do. I mean, that's, there's not a divided up. We're not doing it because we're feminists, because it has to be done, and that's part of the culture. And I think that's true in other more exploited areas than in the majority. And so I think those questions come out of the majority experience, but the reality of struggle is a little different in the minority communities. Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and cut the question line off at the sister on this end and the sister here in the back, and we will take no more questions after those two people. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go straight to the question. The Vietnam War was the first time in which African Americans and white folks and other folks fought together. Over 7,000 black men died in the war, and the Black Panthers were actually active in Vietnam. And you had mentioned, yes, they were active in racial tension, trying to fix some of the stuff that was going on in the United States in Vietnam. So you mentioned the Vietnam War, and a newspaper you mentioned that you were part of, and a delegation that you attended. So I'm wondering if you could talk more about that and your work in Vietnam, or work that you know of other Panthers in Vietnam or going to Vietnam.
Well, I would just say so much more than the brothers who were in Vietnam who came to the party, extraordinarily significant. So what happened to them, they did it here, but they were influenced. In particular, I'm thinking of Geronimo Didaga, who was sent for a second tour of duty to Vietnam after Westmoreland took a delegation up to Detroit to quell the rebellion. And unfortunately for Westmoreland, a significant number, including Geronimo, of soldiers aided and abetted the revolutionary, the snipers, etc. And they were sent for a second term in Vietnam as punishment.
Oh.
So there's a tie there to Vietnam, but we get the benefit here. Did somebody else want to contribute to this question?
In Germany, in Frankfurt, there's an Air Force base. There's several different big cities in Germany. And basically, people were either coming back from the NAM or going to the NAM. And our job, as we saw it, was a stopover to prepare you if you're going back home. And if you're going over, you remember the Battle of Algiers, the movie? With the women, we would take our newspapers and we would go to the guest houses. The German girls hated to see us coming because when we got into the guest house, all the brothers, Hispanic, black, and even some white, they would go, "Oh, Lord." But all they wanted to do was touch us. They just wanted to touch you. And they had a place called, I can't even remember, it was in the mountains. And if you were the kind of GI that gave them trouble, they sent you there. But in Germany itself, outside of a little marijuana, hashish was the big, okay? When they wanted to stop the war, I can't remember what it was, who was it, Nixon or whatever, but the bottom line became this, then drugs. Shaft, the movie, came out, and that was the beginning of the end for political conversation. But I do think that the work that we did, a small group, and even with the black GIs who were organized, and the German left, Kadi Wolf, and you know, we did some good work to help people because war is a horrible thing. And everybody says something like, well, if I had to shoot you or this, that, and the other, until you shoot somebody close and personal, children and women, you have no idea. And a lot of the brothers, and Hispanic brothers, especially the ones from Texas, I mean, they were like horrified. And they also recognized it wasn't the Viet Cong people they were fighting. They were also fighting the war back home. Because ever since World War II, there's a book called We Were There, Black Soldiers in History, blah, blah, blah. Ever since, every person that has ever gone outside this country recognize you're fighting for a system that wants oil, diamonds, gold. But when you come back home, they didn't lynch your brother, and nobody knows who did it. So that period of time, it galvanized the whole world, because that's what I did see. That's one thing. The whole world was like, am I next? Is my country next? What are they doing? And we're still fighting. So it's a bitch.
Thank you.
My name is Gina Lee, and I'm from Revolution Books in Berkeley, which is part of building a movement for revolution today. So my question has to do with, Barbara mentioned that what was a beast in the 60s is now a monster. And I really agree with this, and I wanted to know what you thought, especially since there's been 2 years of protests against police murder. We have a choice between a fascist and a proven war criminal. This system is still a horror for people here and around the world. And I wanted to know how you all see what is both the need and the potential for revolution today. And one of the themes of this is where to go from here.
I think that organizing small cadres of aware people, of knowers, of activists, I think that can be very, very effective, because I see it happening all over this country. You know, whether it's dealing with food issues or environmental issues. And I think that if people can concentrate more on the elected officials who run their cities, I think they can put more effective pressure on them, because when you're talking about the president and all that, I mean, it's really not much you can do about that because it's part of the system the way it works. But when you know who is representing you and who is going to affect your school system and your this and your that, you have more control. And this is something we always used to say. We needed community control. So, yeah, join some of these large movements, but also form small cadres, you know, that you can have a lot of strength with. I think it's very effective.
Yeah.
I think it's a bottom up. We have to start on the bottom and push up. And the young people on the bottom, you know, they're on the ground. That's where the action has to be. Not from somebody up here explaining it.
And revolution is not an act, it's a process. So 50 years have gone by, and if you have a demonstration, I'm coming.
So just for the next person coming to the mic, it's Mama Carolyn Rogers from Houston. I just want to thank her. She stayed in the line for quite some time. Yes. And as a young person, I respect my elders, and I felt really bad having her stand in the line. And thank you to one of my high school students for giving up her seat. And I know I should have trumped the mic and just given it to her over all the people. So thank you for being patient with me.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Wrap it up. Wrap it up.
I would like to thank the panel for a presentation that was so informative. And my question is to Barbara Cox. I would like to know the name of the book that you held up, and if I can purchase the book, and where can I get that book?
All right. Revolutionary Grain. Oh, God, I can't see nothing.
Celebrating the
spirit of the Black Panther Party, Panthers, in portraits and books. Susanna. Nikki, they're out there. They're right out front. What this book deals with is now. It's like 75 portraits and stories of what we've been doing, what has happened to us in the last 50 years. You know, it's an excellent piece. Mama Charlotte's in it, Kat's in it, Eddie's in it. Oh, with so many people.
We're all old now.
Get the book, y'all.
Get the book. Get the book.
It's
really
being launched tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, what's tomorrow?
Y'all, we thank y'all for coming. All power to the people.
All right. Was this a wonderful workshop or what?